Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in November and December. This is a really long overdue video and today it's raining a little bit and I'm just in a mood to talk about some books. So let's start with the first one, Norwegian Wood. I really like this book, at least when I was reading it, I enjoyed it a lot. This is more like a story in someone's memory and it follows this guy called Turu, who is right now in his 70s, and he was sitting on an airplane that just landed in Germany, and the radio started to play Norwegian Wood by the Beatles, and it reminded him of his past when he was 19. I think this book is really beautifully written, especially chapter 1, when he talks about how his memory works, and it was really profound. At least that's how I decided to finish up the entire book based on chapter 1. I just think it's so well written and so touching. The story is really slow and melancholy, and it's just him, the guy Turu, and his best friend Kazuki and Kazuki's girlfriend Nako. It's just three of them hang out all the time. But one day Kazuki committed suicide and it changed everything, how he interacted with Nako as well. The book talks about depression and suicide and just broken people in general. I'm using the words in the book. And the story is kind of fragmented. It's not consistent, I would say, because it's in his memory, which he explained in the beginning why the story will go like this. Sometimes a scene just closed and you're curious about what happened to that person in the end, and he just jumped to the end of that person's story. And sometimes it shocked me. I think it's pretty interesting. Even though it's slow, it's not boring at all. Even though some people say it's problematic because he overly romanticized women. And personally, I don't give a shit. A story is a story. It's not a manifesto, It's just literature, especially I don't judge the author because of that. I definitely don't want to read some guy doing his laundry, loving his mom, and just living his politically correct life. I think that's a nice person, but I don't want to read about that, I don't know. Sometimes when I'm reading a book, I prefer to be disgusted than felt nothing and be bored. Yeah, I think I'm going a little bit too far on the topic, but just all in all, I really enjoy the book. And Murakami is really good at just putting a picture in your head. When I was reading the book, I can picture myself just in that situation because he just does such a good job at describing. He is the only person that describes the weather, the scent of the flower in the book that doesn't annoy me, because I don't like reading about the weather in a book. The clouds, the river, I don't give a shit. Just get to the story, But he is the only one that does that kind of thing that I actually like. So just all in all, I enjoy this book. It's not the best book I've ever read, but I do enjoy it a lot. If you're an English speaker and you want to read more Japanese literature, I think just start with Murakami. He's popular. Just in his work, you can tell that he is deeply influenced by the Western culture. The music he talks about, the books he talks about in this book, it's just all Western literature. So I think it's easier to relate for English speakers. The second book that I read is The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. This is the second time I read this book because I already forgot everything about the book after I read it the first time. This is definitely one of her most popular books, but it's definitely a little bit different than the rest of her works. Usually, you will only know who is the murderer near the end of the story. But this one is actually about a serial killer. The story started to follow the serial killer a little bit, probably right in the middle of the book. And so you already know who is the murderer. And it's definitely a little bit different. When I was reading this book, I felt like I was watching an episode of Criminal Minds. It's just like an episode of Criminal Minds. This serial killer tried to kill someone whose family name with the first letter A in a town that the first letter the name of the town, the first letter is an A too. So he just started to kill people alphabetically, and he will leave a train schedule brochure by the body. And I think in London, they just call it the ABC. So that's why they call him the ABC murder and a murderer. I just love Agatha Christie, and I love this book as well. And I will continue to read more of her works in the future as well. The next book that I read is called A Clockwork Orange. It's a classic, even though it only has 148 pages. It's so hard to read, especially for me, a non-native speaker. It's so hard because the author is a linguist, and there are so many random Russian words in this book. I have to look it up, or I have to ask native speakers, oh, what does this word mean? And they don't know either because it's Russian. I have to read the first 80 pages 3 times to understand what the story is like. Even though I have a vague sense of what the story is, I still have to go back and read it over and over again to completely understand it. The 3 guys in here are psychopaths, and I just love reading stories about psychopaths, especially this one with the psychopath as the first narrator. You can get into his head and understand what he is thinking and how he manipulates other people. And when they commit crimes, they just don't feel a thing. Yeah, that's why they're psychopaths, of course. It's just really brutal, and sometimes I was disgusted. The way the writer writes the story is like really lighthearted, because they're psychopaths, which makes it more disturbing. And when they commit crimes, they just like super playful, and that is worth reading. I highly recommend this book, but also the movie as well. If you don't want to read the book, just watch the movie. The movie did a really great job. The next 2 books that I finished are just 2 audiobooks, and the first one is A Briefer History of Time. It's a really short book. I think it's easier than the original one, A Brief History of Time, but with more updated materials as well. I at least listened to this book about 6 times because the first 3 chapters are so easy to understand. It's just high school physics. But when it comes to the black hole, the relativity, and when it talks about like time travel, it started to get a little bit complicated for me. So I just listened it over and over again, and I'm planning to buy an actual copy of this. I think they have an illustrated version of this book. I really want to look deeper into this book because I love universe. The second book that I finished up on Audible is called So You've Been Publicly Shamed, and it's by Zhang Rongsen. I read so many books by Zhang Rongsen. I love his personal writing style, and I love his storytelling skills, and also I love his voice as well. It's just so soothing. The book talks about many stories about like someone who has been publicly ashamed online, and it's just so interesting. And it talks about how people say something on Twitter, and a lot of the famous cases you probably heard it on TV as well. And Zhang Rongsen kind of did a follow-up on their lives afterwards. And the good thing is that he didn't tell you how to feel, He is really careful about just showing you the facts and let you be the judge. He didn't try to like redeem someone. He just tells you what he sees. That's just his working ethics ever. I read his books on psychopath, he didn't give his opinion. He tells you how it feels, honestly, and you could feel it. He is telling the truth. He's not trying to change everyone's opinion, and this book is like that as well. I'm not gonna be like, I'm gonna show you guys my opinion about how I think about those people who have been ashamed, because who fucking cares, It's just the readers can feel their fears, and Zhang Rongsen is so good at that. He is so good at just telling you a story, but he can make it emotional, just in a really human way, if that makes any sense. I just love Zhang Rongsen. I'm going to keep reading his other works as well. And if you're just trying to find some really emotional and informative non-fiction stories about just people who have been publicly ashamed, if you want to know more about them, definitely check out that book as well. Okay guys, so those are all the books that I finished up in November and December. And I don't know if you guys want to see like a yearly book recommendation. If you do and just want to see all the books that I read in 2017, please let me know in the comment section down below. And please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or you just want to see more book videos in the future. Just let me know because I don't think people give a shit about my book videos. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching this far, and please check out my other videos if you're interested, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!